Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Testimony Tuesdays, where real life people share real life stories. My name is Ima Petion, and I have the pleasure of having Deputy Shae Haggins on today. Get ready for a treat. Thank you so much for being on the show today, Deputy Shae. Can you please tell the people a little bit about yourself?
All right. Hello, everyone. So I'm Shae, born and raised in Lakeland, Florida. I played college basketball. Started out as a dispatcher when I left college and later went to the academy, and now here we are. I'm the youngest sibling of 5, and I love to shop, I love to eat, I love to sing, and that's pretty much me.
So for our first question, what led you to become a police officer, and what advice would you give to a youth who would like to become one?
Okay, so this may sound a little touche, but it's my truth. So being a dispatcher, I always knew that, and just playing sports my whole life, I always knew that sitting down just wasn't for me. I like to be out. I like to pretty much do my own thing even while working. But I also, with some of the way like black men were treated, on the road and stuff, and with this a lot of police brutality, I'm not saying that everyone's a victim, because we do have some, unfortunately, that talk themselves into those things. However, with me having a black father and 3 black brothers, I just said, after doing a few ride-alongs with a few deputies, and just wanting to make a difference out in the community, I said, well, I know I can't save everybody, but at least when I'm there, that I can make a little difference and I can save a life. So pretty much that's what led me to do what I'm doing now. The advice that I would give, I would say to actually go out and do what I did, do ride-alongs, because a lot of people think that policing is what they see on TV, and it's absolutely nothing like that. So if you feel like you want to be a server and someone that makes a difference in your community, go out, and whenever you're old enough, obviously you have to be 18, do those ride-alongs, because we deal with a lot of things that people don't realize that we deal with. It's not just putting bad people in jail. No, we have to show up on death investigations. We see decomposed bodies. You see, you deal with a lot of nasty and gruesome things. We're first on scene. That's why they call us first responders. So a lot of people just look at it, I have a badge and a gun, but we deal with a lot of things that people, mentally, it will take a toll on your mental if you don't have a turn off and turn on button, and I have that. A lot of people, it sounds harsh, but it is what it is. And that's why I feel like I've been successful thus far with doing my job. I love to travel. I love my family. And when I'm not at work, Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office does not exist. And that's just what it is, because a lot of people eat, sleep, and breathe this stuff. And that's why a lot of law enforcement, suicides happen. These people, they take their own lives because they take work home. I don't do that. There are certain calls, because I love babies, I love children, I love elderly. It makes me think of my late nana. There are certain things that kind of touch and hit home. And I have my moment at work, and thank God that I do have, zone partners that know me well enough to know that I give them a certain look and they know I need to step away, and I have my moment. But after that, I leave it alone if I have to cry, because yes, we aren't robots. We do cry. We're humans like everyone else. But I cry about it, and that's that. I have my moment. But baby, once 6 o'clock hit, I turn my laptop off, I turn my radio off, and that's that. You don't have to have a degree. As long as you have a high school diploma or a GED, you can. However, I have a master's degree. If you want to promote, you do have to have a degree, and I suggest that you do, because it just looks a lot better on your resume, and you get paid more money when you have an education as well as a law enforcement officer.
What advice would you give to the people when interacting with police officers?
I would say, you have to realize that any encounter that we have with you is not, I'm going to speak as far as calls for service. We're not just rolling up to harass nobody. We're not just rolling up because we're not just rolling up because we want to be there. Someone called us or you called us. So I understand that you're in a crisis, However, whatever pissed you off before we got there, don't take that out on us. Because a lot of our interaction and a lot of the things that we do, I'm not going to say, like, and I'm just going to be real and raw. There are people that have power trips and they do things because they can, although they shouldn't. However, your energy and your interaction, how you start off, how you lead is how we follow. You know, so don't just automatically, again, I understand if you're in a crisis, I get, you know, you felt like you needed to call us to come and make a decision for you, but don't take it out on us. That's a lot of things I tell people that as well. It's even with traffic stops. A lot of people with me, I understand that we are in a horrible economy right now. You know, people are laid off, people don't have money. So one thing that I don't try to do is I don't try to dig into people's pockets and give citations, but a lot of people talk their way into citations when it comes to me. You know, if I'm being polite to you, be polite to me. You know, and that's what a lot of people don't realize, because I could have just left a call for service where I just had to beat the snot out of somebody, but because I'm still pissed off because you done spit in my face or something like that, because yes, we deal with that too. You know, I'm not going to call to this call because of what the last person did to you. I'm not going to take that out on you. So that's why we just ask, you know, give us that common courtesy, treat us with respect, and more than likely 9 times out of 10, you're going to get treated with that same respect. You know, and that's just pretty much my intake on, you know, the community and interacting with us.
Can you tell us about the choices that you made in high school and college to get you to where you are today?
So in high school, I always knew that I would do something with law enforcement, because we had a law academy at George Jenkins High School, the school that I attended. So I was a part of that, and honestly, I wanted to be a lawyer first. So like I said, the field itself, I knew I was going to do something with that. So that was the first start of my law enforcement career, you know, being into that law academy and just trying to kind of get my hands wet with that. College, I got my associate's degree in criminal justice. I got my bachelor's degree in criminal justice, again, because I knew that that's what I wanted to do. So that's just the necessary steps that I did. You know, even with playing basketball, I knew if that wasn't going to be my avenue, I knew that that's just what I was going to do.
So for our fourth question, have you had to deal with any unfortunate life circumstances?
I've dealt with quite a few unfortunate things in my life. The first one, my senior year in college, I had worked out. I mean, when I tell you, I felt like I was ready to go and forget a WNBA roster. I was going to be on somebody's NBA roster, because, you know, that summer I had put in so much work. Like, everything that my coach sent me, I did it plus more. Like, working summer camp, I get off work, I literally was at the gym where I worked at Simpson Park, until Coach Queese used to have to cut the lights off, you know, at the gym on us, because that's how it was. And then I'll go back to school. The second week of school, I get into a horrific car accident where I almost lost my life, and if it wasn't for God, I wouldn't be here today. I had to red shirt that year. I had to sit out. It was my senior year of college. I had to do extensive therapy to get better. I couldn't even get on the airplane because that's how bad I was. You know, we were traveling back on the interstate, because I went to, my second school was up in West Virginia. Coming back, we flipped over the interstate, dropped 63 feet off, rolled down the mountain. What stopped us was a tree that was on the mountain. So by the time, like I said, there was 4 of us in the car. All of us survived. I was able to break out the back window and lift the person up that was in the back seat with me. She got out, I got out. And like I said, whenever I got out of the car, we dropped 63 feet down the mountain with the person that came in, the tow truck that came and got the car. That's what they ended up telling us. So I saw a light at the top, and I said I wasn't stopping until I got there, because I said I wasn't finna die down there. So when I got there, I guess the adrenaline rush, by the time I was done, I stopped, I dropped to my knees, I couldn't walk no more. I was literally, blood was pouring out of my mouth like somebody was pouring juice into a cup. That's how bad, like, I didn't realize how bad off it was, and my lung had collapsed because I had broken ribs, and I didn't realize it until, you know, I obviously got to the hospital. But pretty much, like I said, said all that to say, you know, that year, I was depressed, like, because I was so, like, I was supposed to be the star of my team that year, and which I knew I was because of, like I said, the work that I put in that year. And it's just like my world came crashing down, like, and I'm just like, well, dang, like, well, God, like, what, that I automatically thought, like, well, God, what did I do? Because, growing up in the church, you hear those stories, like, God has his way of sitting you down, if he feel like you're doing all of this stuff. But I'm like, I ain't never been in trouble. Like, I don't go to jail, I don't break the law, I don't do all this stuff. So I'm just like, well, why? Like, why me? Like, what did I do to deserve this? And, like my dad had to tell me, he was like, baby, well, it's not always sometimes, what you're thinking that, oh, God is trying to punish you. He said, sometimes it's just something so simple. He said, sometimes he wants to see your response to things. So, I tried to take that and I tried to, think of the good. But again, like I said, the main thing that I'm here at school was paying for my education just got snatched away from me. So I was able to get through that year. I ended up, because of that, I still graduated, got my bachelor's degree. So I had 1 year of eligibility left, and I ended up coming back and I was able to get my master's degree. So I'm like, okay, well, I probably wouldn't have done that. So that was a blessing in disguise as is. And so, with that, that's what started my career. And then unfortunately back in 2021, I lost my mom, and that was very life-changing, because that my relationship wasn't always the best with my mom. However, during that time, whenever me and my siblings did lose her, it was getting back to the point where it was getting better. So I just felt like that was just snatched away from me, and that was all. It was a very rough time. Like, I had to take a month off from work. Like, I'm really just getting now, and 4 years later, getting to the point where I could talk about my mom and not cry, And it's just like, again, it's like you see these other people that are doing all these crazy and bad things, and it's like, I'm trying to live right. I pay my tithes faithfully, My pastor asks for, sometimes, I give to people, you try to do these things, and it's just like, well, dang, like, like, when am I going to catch a break, So that was 2021. Fast forward 2 years later, 2023, I lose my Nana. And everybody knows how I was about that lady. That lady was my world. I thought she was invincible. I thought she was immortal. I never thought that my Nana would pass away. And she was the closest thing, to my mom when we lost our mom. So that was another rough time. And also going through heartbreak at the same time, It's just like, I'm like, well, God, dog, like, I felt like I was Job's sister for real, like, it's just like everything that was close to me was getting snatched away. And I just, like I said, like, that really, I mean, obviously losing my mom was rough, but losing my Nana was rough too. And then turn around in 2024, not even a year that my Nana passed away, September 27th, I lose my brother. So that's three first blood, family members within 3 years that I lost. So it's just like I said, and on top of dealing with other things in my personal life, it's just like what's, that if that ain't tragic, I don't know what is. And it was tough. So, yeah.
What advice or wisdom would you share, being that you've been through so much? What would you tell someone feeling hopeless due to life catastrophes?
That's because I've been there, and like I said, growing up in the church with my mom and dad taught us, that God is, the source of your strength and all of that. But being human and going through those things, it's like sometimes I can't even lie. I felt like God forgot about me in some seasons, But when they say stay true to that word, man, you got to hold on to that, because God is the person that's going to get you through everything. Because in that scripture, it says he'll never leave you, he'll never forsake you, and that stands to be true. But just like that little token that my daddy always said, he said, baby, that's, I feel like a lot of that stuff was thrown at me. And yes, it is a test of character and it's a test of your faith. But a lot of times, he does want to see, your response. So God has to be the center. That's literally the only way that I've been able to be sustained and held on the way that I have. You have your friends, you have your family, the people that you can lean and depend on, when you need someone to talk to. But when it's just you, and you sit in that shower and you crying your eyes out, it's him. Like, it's so simple and it's such a touche thing to say, but people don't realize that God is literally the source of your strength, and he's the center of everything, you know. And now, like I say, you know, those were rough times, you know, and like I said, yes, it's gonna feel like God has forgotten about you, but he does some of the sweetest, smallest things to remind you that I've been here with you, you know, and I've never left you and I've never forsaken you. So hold on to God's unchanging hand. That was one of my Nana's favorite songs in the world. And you got to realize when you're rooted in that, and it doesn't make it easier when you are rooted in that, and, you know, because like I said, I knew the answers, and I knew, like, okay, get in the word. Okay, I did that, but God, what now? You know, I prayed, you know, you fasted, you did all these things, and it's like, okay, like, but I'm still here. But it's in those times, like when you're doing all those things, when you feel like he's forgotten about you, and that's when your strength is coming and you feel your help is coming. So if I'm talking to you, if that does, you know, if that does relate to your story, and you feel like that God has forgotten about you, and you feel like you at your wits end, you about to grow up, you about to just give up and just throw in the towel, I promise there is a light at the tunnel, and that's when you really got to cling on and hold on to what you've been rooted in, and know and trust that God's got you, because trust and believe that that's when your breakthrough is going to come.
Thank you so much for sharing your testimony, Shae. Thank you so much for being the face of strength and courage. I truly look up to you. I pray that everyone who hears your testimony on today, that they are blessed, because even though you have been a lot, you have conquered more. And just like how you have told the people, stay rooted in God, because as we can see, not only are you a walking miracle, but you are a testament to what God can truly do. Thank you so much for being on Testimony Tuesdays today. And I hope that not only you are blessed, but you guys are blessed as well. Until next time.